Hey everyone, welcome Tim Ringel, CEO of Meet the People. Hi Tim.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
It's my pleasure. We're going to really get into the nature of Meet the People and its unique characteristics in the ad agency landscape, which is going through a lot of change
hmm
and turmoil right now. But really, what's important to brands and retailers and others who are looking to select an agency. Let's talk about what Meet the People has that stands out that makes it more approachable.
My vision for Meet the People is that we can basically do full funnel work. And that means from the incubation of creativity, let's say we rebrush, refresh, redesign a brand, down to how it activates physically and digitally in market. We want to be able to deliver service across all of those. But we also know that a lot of people have made that promise, especially large holding companies, and they fall down on it very often because the incentive structure on how people should work across the network is broken. Lots of the people who run individual businesses in large holding companies are incentivized against their individual P&L. Like, how do I make money? So how do I get my bonus check in April? So we're breaking that system because the people who run our companies, they all own a piece of the company we're building together. Of course, they see that they want to do excellency in their particular business, but also they see the benefit of, I don't want to say control more of the client work, but basically don't have the inefficiencies of so many handovers where everybody has their own political or monetary incentive. And that helps a lot. So we're obviously a disruptor in the industry. There's other companies who are trying to do the same. We're around 750, 800 people right now. We're only in the US and Canada, and we help two sets of clients. We help very large brands, Fortune 100, Fortune 500, with extremely surgical things where mostly the holding companies cannot deliver in the same agility, speed, price. They simply don't, I don't want to blame them, but they don't want to do the heavy lift. It's much easier to do a big Super Bowl campaign than actually helping a client on one of our clients. We do 12,000 experiential activations a year in the United States. So that is not easy to do with a lot of people who are working on that piece of business. Clients, even very large brands like LVMH, Google, IBM, and so on, they come to us for very surgical solutions. And then mid-sized brands, let's say companies that have themselves 200-300 million of revenue to very few billions of revenue, they really are done with the fragmentation of the industry. They know they want a business partner who can really serve them from A to Z, even though they want real specialists on the business. And this is where I would say our superpower comes together. We have clients who have, call it 1,000 locations in the United States, or universities that really want everything, but they want it from one group so they can negotiate scale. But at the same time, they do want the specialists. They do want someone to talk about search. They do want someone to talk about programmatic. They do want someone to talk about what's the change now in creativity when we talk about AI-enabled multivariate testing of ads. So they want all of it. Some of them even want rebranding, right? Where they still want the activation physically on the ground to, let's say, win new students. So we have both sets of those clients who live across 8 of our trades, while clients who only live in one trade. That's the differentiator. So we start the conversation a little more on what problem are we trying to solve here without being consultants charging tens of thousands of dollars just to have a conversation, right? We look at it as we have the conversation for free, try to understand the business issue, and then we see what services can actually solve that problem. And often the briefs or pitches we get in, they're actually not really addressing the problem. They're addressing the symptom. So we're trying to get to the problem first. Like usually a CMO who talks to us is either driven by defending market share, growing market share, or fixing something very specific. And then we try to see what mix of services, what agencies could help the best within our network of our 10 companies right now.
Okay, so just summarize for out of the loop kind of listeners
Mhm.
who are not so closely involved, is in some ways you're similar to the conglomerates.
Absolutely.
Structure's the same to me. I'm an outsider. Sounds
Mhm.
the same. But the difference is maybe perhaps flow of work and the logistics because of the independent nature of what you have conglomerated. The services are cleaner, more cost effective, perhaps more creative. We don't need to debate that, but maybe one can argue that it's more creative at a smaller,
Mhm.
floatier place. And in the end, the services and results across all of the different solutions you provide are of a better caliber. They're similar, but better. Is that
Of
safe
course.
to-
Yeah, we're not reinventing capabilities, right? You do need a great performance marketing agency, just like you need a great creative agency, just like you need a great experiential agency. That's out of question. And there's tons of those choices. In the United States alone, there's 14,000 plus independent agencies. Like, but we come in when it's beyond just the individual scope for a mid-sized brand. We come in and tie together, right? Because often it's not about, oh, I want to do more experiential. No, what are you actually trying to do? You want to go D2C. You want to build a direct relationship with the relevant audience. So it goes beyond just the experiential. It goes into data capture, it goes into creativity, it goes into how to re-engage with that audience after the experience happens, right? And you can't really tie that together very easily if you don't have the trades under one roof, because you're going to lose intelligence in the handovers. But because of the singular ownership structure, even though we have superpower brands who are really good at one thing each, we can tie that together. And it's pretty successful. We grow last year 30%. This year, we think we're going to grow similarly. And that's partially through organic and partially through acquisitions, of course. And then you can ask my employees, I think, and all the people who are in the group, it's just much more fun because most of the politics are out of the way, right? There's no better feeling than you're winning a piece of business and then you're asking your friends who you work with every day, can you chip in here? And it's not structured in a way where, oh, there's this in it for you. If you open the door to that client, it's basically because you want to do a really good job on that client. So it's client-centric, people-centric first, and then it's money-centric. And that's very different to large holding companies that are listed in the stock exchange, have to deliver quarterly results. Everybody wants their big bonus check. So it's financial first there, and then it's client, and then it's eventually people. And we see this right now with the merger, with business moving around, people being laid off. It's absolutely terrible if you look at what's happening to our industry, right? Big legacy brands being rolled into brands that mean nothing. So it's a little sad, but at the same time, it gets me really excited because it's time for the independence. It really is time for independence. If you build on longevity, sustainable business models, and you have great people, honestly, you can only win. So I like.
Do you think that you have a lot of options to add independence because it's very hard for them to get business in and of themselves? So they see you as a stabilizer, a growth opportunity, somewhere where they can maybe take the pressure off the survival and
Right.
move over to thriving. So from survive to thrive because of the size of what you're bringing and the reach, the inbound, all of that. With the industry,
Correct.
certainly on the bigger side is going through a chaotic moment, but also on the independent side, and in some ways you're benefiting and maybe seen. I don't really know. Is it like you guys are really a savior, or are you like a sellout? Be honest.
In some cases, we were saviors, where especially we started in the pandemic, and in the pandemic, a lot of independents were really struggling. Some were struggling to the extent where they wouldn't have survived, or they wouldn't survive, or they didn't survive, right? So we did buy two companies in the pandemic that probably without us coming in, there was a big question mark if they would make it, right? And we stabilized those businesses, slightly restructured them because the industry changed during that time dramatically. And today these two businesses are thriving and these founders are here in this, right? But we're also buying businesses that are simply doing well within their isolated capability, let's say performance marketing or digital creative, or recently a year ago, we bought an independent full service media agency with 225 people, and they were tapping out on what they could do on their own. And one reason is the regionality of the businesses sometimes. How do you get out of your 5 states? They're really good, and the United States is massive. I come from Germany. It's small. It's 80 million people. They all speak the same language, but you outgrow the market pretty quick. I had 150 people in my first business, and I was probably the biggest performance marketing agency in my country. So the US is slightly different. So you can build a beautiful business just concentrating on 3 states. Right? But how do you get beyond that? And a lot of founders and agency leaders, they don't really know how to step up from there. And the second thing is, because of the hyper technologization of our space, and don't even say AI, just in general, access to data, access to technology costs a lot of money. So how many agencies with 60, 70 people can spend $1 million building proprietary tech or building automated finance infrastructure, HR infrastructure? They just can't. So they fall behind the technologization more and more. So a savior from a financial perspective, sometimes, a savior from a unlocking growth potential, definitely. And I think most founders join us because they feel, because we don't strip away their brand, right? The company still stays what it is in their DNA, in their capabilities. So they feel like I'm actually diversifying my risk financially because I'm becoming part of something bigger. They take some money off the table. They roll it back into our structure, roll some of the equity back into our structure. And then all of a sudden they get leads from the other agencies because we don't buy overlapping businesses. We only buy complementary businesses. We have one creative agency that is very strong in finance, tech, software, hardware, B2B consulting. We wouldn't buy another one like that. We would probably buy a consumer-focused creative agency. So they don't really get into each other's way. If you ask any agency founder, they will always say, I'm a full service agency, because entrepreneurs never say no to business, right? But in reality, we distill it down to one superpower. And in that superpower, they go and do what they feel is best for them. When we call on the Avengers, when Hulk gets together with Iron Man, and then we go for the cross-agency opportunities. And today, 70% of what we pitch or we get briefs on is cross-agency. So it's basically you open another door for your new business to come in. And agencies thrive on a winning culture. It just gives you, because it's such a relationship and people business, that once you start winning as a company, your entire mindset changes. And that's just quite beautiful to see also.
I have two questions for you. The first is,
Mhm.
are CMOs reaching out for one thing, or are they coming with three
Mhm.
things, or the whole thing? Because you mentioned something that caught
Mhm.
my ear, and I was like, wait, what? Are they really just reaching out for one thing? And what are they doing about the other things, or they're taken care of with the other things? Why isn't it more comprehensive out the door, like more strategic in that way?
That's a cultural shift that happened probably post-pandemic, because think about your CMO. But anyways, the shelf life of a CMO has reduced to roughly 3.5 years in the drop. Then they usually get recycled out or they find a new gig. Formerly, number one, the shelf life was longer, the longevity of the drop was longer. Number two, the scrutiny on you spending money is much more difficult now. Like the CFO is basically like, you have to get everything approved, right? So they like to chip away on pieces to actually, number one, get stuff done. Number two, also to secure their jobs. Let's be very honest about it. There's hardly, on the creative side, there's hardly any long-term AOR retainer deals out there that are multi-million dollars anymore. I'm not talking about, I don't know, Colgate or Mars pitching. That's not what we pitch for. But let's say a solid brand that wants to refresh their identity, there's hardly any of those pitches out there. The entire culture has changed from, I give you $150,000, $250,000 project for a quarter, prove yourself against these agencies, then you get the next quarter and the next quarter and the next quarter. So that behavior has become extremely normal on the creative side. On the media side is a little bit different. So there is rarely, it's more evergreen, and it's more, I give you my budget and then let's become more efficient or something like that. But the journey with us usually starts either in creative, in commerce, or in media. And then in the meeting, we bring the other people in. We usually, in a creative pitch, we always have media people sitting around there as well, because it makes no sense to talk about creative if you don't talk about how it activates. You have to understand, do I want to have a social first strategy? Do I want to have a traditional media strategy? Do I want to, like, how much search do I mix in there and how creative can I be there? Like, it's very difficult to really do a great campaign ideation without thinking what the formats are. And the other way around, how are you gonna spend money without knowing what the creative is gonna look like? It was artificially kept apart by the holding companies because it was easier to make money when people were not talking to each other, because every trade can charge something. And that's just changed, especially for, I would say, mid-sized budget. They don't want this inefficiency anymore. They don't want to pitch 15 agencies on creative, 15 agencies on media. They rather have a trusted relationship with someone who really understands the industry.
Well, you raise a really good point. So let's say I'm a brand, I'm listening to this. What's the first step? They go to the homepage and they fill out a form, or pretty
Well,
basic,
they
typical.
can also, they can call me, they can email me. It's
Mm.
tim@meetthepeople.com. They can go to LinkedIn and reach out to me there. They can call any of our agencies, wherever the journey starts for them. We have clients who just call us on commerce. For example, let's say you are a chocolate manufacturer and you want to sell more product, right? And most of that action actually happens in the lower funnel, in the aisle. Digital and physical shelf. So lots of those consumer packaged product people, they call us on commerce first. They call in, I need to move more product. How do I get into Target, Walmart, Whole Foods? Like, how do I do all that? Like, I need to figure out a strategy, how to present my product there. So I move more SKUs. And then we tell them it's not enough to be there. You do have to think about how do you activate your creative? How do you get footfall into the door that's already pre-qualified? And all of a sudden, the brief changes from, oh, I want something very surgical into, yeah, I should think a little bit more holistic about this. But this works really well for mid-sized brands where you're talking directly to the CEO, to the CMO, to decision makers. It's different when we work with very large brands who a VP of brand is protecting their budget, while a VP of social protects their budget, a VP of search protects their budget. So that becomes a little bit different. But with the mid-sized brands, that definitely we're going to elevate the conversation when somebody has a conversation with us.
What have you seen in D2C space? You just mentioned a CPG, but
Mhm.
can you speak a little bit or maybe provide a case study in D2C?
Yeah, a D2C is big, right? You can be anything from you're actually a manufacturer of something to your retailer yourself, and you'd want to own more of the consumer data. So there is D2C is not as simple as it sounds. It's multi-channel. It's lots of channels, lots of challenges. So I think the biggest problem we see is that due to online shopping, there's just not so much action anymore at the checkout in physical spaces, especially on convenience products. Like, who really cares what detergent you're buying? Do you really care if Amazon can deliver a similar product for half the price within the same day? Do you really gonna go and like stock up on detergent? Like, people, because of the digitalization of delivery and channels, people have become a little numb to loyalty on everyday products. It doesn't really matter what toilet paper you're buying, right? Does it really matter? Yes, if it's a bad experience, you're gonna change. But as long as the experience is decent, you're not gonna pay double, So that's a real problem that Tide and toothpaste manufacturing, like these people fall into these problems because they haven't cared about who the consumer actually is. They like their three-layer distribution model. Oh, I'm just gonna put it on the shelf by the shelf space, like top of eye, right? And it's gonna move. The product is gonna move. It's gonna be great, right? We change the packaging every other month, and we launch a new product, and we're done. They never collected any consumer data, so they're really falling on their face right now. Right. So they need a very different D2C strategy because they're still used to traditional shelves than, let's say, a manufacturer. We have a sporting goods manufacturer who creates protective gear, football helmet, baseball bats, like all that kind of stuff. And their D2C strategy is very clear, all digital. We know exactly that it's a higher margin if we sell digitally. Therefore, we create a loyalty program around it. We get people in once, we pay the ransom once to Google and others, and then we keep them in the loop with email marketing and with reactivation. So it's very different to toothpaste. It's higher basket, different engagement. So each strategy is technically different, but we try to create these omni-channel strategies, but they are all individual. There is no cookie cutter omni-channel strategy, right?
What's one of your most proud output campaigns or strategies you've put out that was both creative but also highly successful in terms
Mhm.
of either ROI or awareness?
Yeah. So we did a couple of very cool creative campaigns recently that I love to talk about, and I think all of them got awards, or at least let's hope we submitted to some. We are very strong in solving problems that a holding company wouldn't really look at, right? For example, we have one client, FactSet, who is a financial services company, and they just won tons of awards. It's a very funny B2B campaign, right? So that's cool stuff. Like, again, as I said, I don't like hopping on the social media bandwagon of, oh, we hype this and we got a lot of impressions. That doesn't move a product, didn't move a product at all. Like, that we really try to, and it's in our brand, meet the people, we drive business and business impact and ROI. That's really the idea. So FactSet multi-awarded campaign already. We just got the Anna Awards. We've submitted to the Drama Awards. I don't know if we're going to win it, but we won multiple awards there. Another really cool campaign we have done is for Chime. You might know it's a financial app, and we are running their investor relations communications campaign, Wall Street, regulators, and so on and so forth. So very cool work there, very fun work. And we have also another example is cybersecurity with McAfee. We have done an AI campaign that also looks like an AI campaign because their product basically says we're gonna make sure you're protected from AI spam, right?
I thank you so much for your time and your insights and everything. I'm sure you're quite busy. Are you heading overseas? Are you going to Cannes Lion?
Uh,
Isn't
yeah,
that,
yes.
speaking of Super Bowl?
Yeah, I'm always on the fence with Can because I've gone a few years and then I stopped for a few years. Now I'm going back this year. Thank you so much for your time, and it was a pleasure.
And that is what just happened. I'm Christine Russo.